arrive on time to make sure that it gets to the printing press. So the tension in the newsroom before that deadline was, you could feel it, was tangible. So I think that's why people smoked so much. The whole place, you couldn't see anything. And after the tension died, they all went to a place called Conipot. Our offices were on Moy Avenue, near Koja Mosque, and all the journalists then went to drink White Cup at Conipot and sort of tear everybody down. And then the whole thing would be repeated the next day, that tension, and then the relief. But in all this, when you walk to the right, that's where Hillary's office was. And it was like heaven, completely another world. It was quiet, no smoke, nothing, no typewriter, just papers piled on the desk. And I couldn't put the two together, you know, the completely opposite. And when you were summoned, you know, I saw him, it was like you're walking into the presence of, you can't explain, you know, we had studied about this man, to just learn from him. And he quietly, very patiently, just gave you directions on what to do. And the one thing about Hillary is when he talked to you, he listened to you, he gave you 100% of his attention. And that is something I learned from him from then. He made you feel you're important. He was a very busy man, didn't have too much time, but when he gave it to you, he concentrated on you, 100%. And he listened to every word you had to say. And he gave you dignity. And he listened to what is not being said, which is usually more important than what is being said. And that's a lesson I learned from Hillary later on in life. When I left, I went to join advertising. When again, I went to run McCann Erickson. I went to Ogilvy and Smith and then McCann Erickson. And that is when I came into contact with Weekly Review from the other side of the divide, so to say. And it was during the heydays of Weekly Review. And even in the 90s, there were always complaints as to why Weekly Review is not getting as much advertising as it should from the big agencies, the big advertisers. And as it has been said, Hillary was a man of principle. He was a truly, fiercely independent man who did not believe in falling into the, you know, what is known today as acceptable behavior. He would not come to see agencies. He would not come on his knees. He would not give kickbacks. We all know the reality of advertising. Some things go, some agreements, either you have lunch or you have things under. Hillary did not participate in that. Hillary did not even attend cocktail parties. And sometimes I'd ask, why aren't we giving ads to Hillary? Oh, we haven't seen him, we haven't seen any of his people. Oh, he doesn't come, he doesn't. But Hillary would not do that. And I realized much later in life when Jaidi was talking about why it went down. There's a price to pay in this, well, in the world, but especially in this country, when you refuse to be pigeonholed, when you remain fiercely independent. Hillary, even on the political scene, even in his publications, refused to be pigeonholed. And when you do that, people on either side don't trust you. On either side, they don't trust you because you're too independent. You cannot be influenced, you cannot be bought. And you pay a price. You pay a price because he was starved for cash, as far as advertising was concerned. And then when it came to political support, he was accused of being on both sides. The opposition accused him of selling off to Moy. Moy was 100% suspicious because he couldn't really buy this guy completely. But, you know, as I was told by people who knew him, he was justified in the end. Today, I mean, Hillary was very cynical about the caliber of politicians we have, even those in opposition. And today we can see he's been justified. You look at the way they turn out, look at their principles, and you can see his view was justified. But what is little known about Hillary is that he's a man of many firsts. Sure, he's the editor-in-chief, a publisher, broadcaster, father, entrepreneur, risk-taker, but he set up the first community TV station in this country, STV. And his concept was localized TV, addressing local communities, reporting their news, giving local content, before local content became the sexy thing to talk about. That was 25 years ago. He knew about the value of people having their own news reported. So he set up transmitters in Nairobi. He set up with 5-kilometer radius so that you cover the news for that area. He set up in Kisumu. He'd look for the highest building and set up a transmitter. He set up a transmitter in Mombasa, in Meru, and in Eldoret. And the concept of just having localized news is what now we came to know with digital advertising, when digital was introduced in 2013, way after Hillary conceived of that. Hillary came up with the concept of local content, as you've had, so that people are watching their own content about them, meeting their own needs. Hillary launched the first business news. I remember he called me in 1995 to ask me to recommend somebody to anchor the business news. And he employed Judy Munyinyi, who is now a PS in the Ministry of Communications. And the quality of that news, long before these other stations, KTN and others, thought, oh, it's a good idea to have business news come out. Hillary is the first person who brought to Kenyan viewers Hollywood blockbusters. Remember, it was called the Carson's Movie of the Week, and he would come, and he brought it. Hillary is the first one to bring high-quality soap operas, the days of our lives, long before what we see on Citizen and other places. So you can see a man, 25 years ago is what is being reproduced today. People copied it and are not aware that the first person who thought of this was Hillary. The very concept of integrated media, where you own publications, where you own titles in print, and then you own a TV station. Today NMG do it and others, but it's Hillary who thought about it, 1995, 96. Hillary is therefore, hasn't been given enough credit. When people talk about Hillary, they talk about Weekly Review. They talk about the publications. But they don't realize the strides, what he opened, even in the broadcast sector for us. When I joined the broadcast sector with the launch of Kameme and K24, I then began to take lessons I'd learned from Hillary. How to treat people, how to nurture staff. The people who worked for Hillary, people like William Sholei, who came up, the first employees, Susan Nyaga were telling me how he invested in their training in ICT, how he gave them room, how he was creative, how he took risks, he let people grow. I also learned that the experiences he went through, I also went through them. Theory and practice are very different things. He entered into agreements, for example, for advertising with Sharad Rao to go out and bring ads. The guy took off together with the money, It happens. You were saying, Jaidi, that, enter into contracts with people to invest in your company. Sometimes you can get your fingers burnt, let me say that. So these are lessons in life that happen. He refused, he maintained standards, and he could have been a lot more successful financially than if he had just sacrificed his principles. I remember in Weekly Review, he refused to take cigarette advertising. People thought he was crazy. Embassy ads, he could have made money, but he had, because this was a calling for him. It was for public good, there was something he was pursuing, there were levels he would not bow down to. Today, if he was around, he would not take this betting advertising and other things that are destructive to society. As you said, he refused to sell his title to somebody because they were not going to uphold journalistic principles. They were just businessmen. So today you're either a Hillary or you're a businessman. I don't know if you can survive being both. I don't know. But the lessons we have learned from Hillary will stay with us. They're with me in my business. They're with me as we struggle. I look at similarities. I always look back to learn from him. The biggest lesson I learned from him is keep going. Keep trying new things. Take challenges. Hillary was a man way ahead of his time. And he's learned that so long as you have breath in your body, explore, take risks, do something different. Treat people with decency, whoever they are, wherever they are, whatever station of life. Treat every human being with dignity. And the biggest lesson I learned from Hillary is be authentic. Authentic, African, be proud of who you are, because that's also you are also world class. Because he was an African who was authentic, brilliant, and world class. I'm honored to have known him. Thank you.